Hey guys, Ben here and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about some big news for the Arrowverse. You guys who are DCTV fans are going to have to stick around for this video because this is important news. So if you do go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos later this year. Okay, so we have a big article that we have to go through. This actually is in relation to something that happened recently. News recently circulated that Greg Bellanti, the head of Volante Productions, and obviously he works with Warner Brothers TV, and he's basically the architect behind the Arrowverse, and he was pretty much the one to get all these shows happening and obviously connecting them all together. But the big news we're going to be talking about today is the fact that Greg Bellanti has just signed a new mega overall deal with Warner Brothers Television, aka WBTV, and I'm going to tell you guys why it's a big move by Warner Brothers, and it says a lot that Greg Bellanti is sticking around because obviously this was put into question considering all the cancellations, all the shows ending that were under Volante Productions. But clearly at least Warner Brothers Discovery sees the value in Bellanti's shows, so he's going to be sticking around, and we're going to break down this deadline article which you will find in the link in the description below if you want to read it afterwards. I have to warn you guys, this article is quite extensive. We're going to be going over it bit by bit and breaking it down. I'll obviously skip over the bits that aren't relevant to what we need to talk about in this video, but let's go ahead and start breaking it down. So it begins like this. Warner Bros. Is keeping their most prolific TV producer of the last decade in the fold. Greg Bellanti has closed a massive new 4-year exclusive overall deal for his Volante Productions to remain at the studio for its television operations into the year 2027. So obviously that's a big deal. 4 more years. That means 4 seasons of new shows or continuing the shows that he already has. We know he's obviously working with Warner Brothers over on HBO Max with Melissa Benoist's new show, as well as a couple of other shows, plus obviously the shows that he's got running right now on the CW, plus also you got Gotham Knights, which he is a producer behind. And so they go on to say this: no financial terms have been disclosed, but sources indicate that the pact is structured differently than Bellanti's most recent blockbuster overall deal with WBTV, whose value has been estimated more than $300 million and as much as $400 million over 6 years. That agreement involved the studio buying out Bellanti's back end on his shows, while the new deal is more of a joint venture with a big potential upside for Bellanti, sources have said. So yeah, let's continue with this. In success, based on the number of series the new deal yields and their profitability, it could be the biggest TV deal ever for Warner Brothers. It marks the first re-up for the top TV creative talent since the Discovery merger, which is just basically saying that Greg Bellanti is the only one that has basically re-upped any kind of deal that they've had with producers that they work with traditionally. And the article goes on to say this: with the company's new leadership sending a signal that even with the cost-cutting measures, including a slew of write-offs that have made headlines over the past 9 months, they are willing to step up in order to keep the biggest names on their talent roster. So actually the head of WBD, David Zaslav, who I'm sure most of you guys know, said this: Greg is a huge talent, and the impact of his prolific and powerful storytelling on Warner Bros. And audiences and on our culture is just wow. He began his career with us, and we are incredibly fortunate that he will continue to build and grow our TV studio into the future. So that's some big validation for Greg Bellanti. Even the head of Warner Bros., who has been cutting back on absolutely everything and basically retooling Warner Brothers itself, is a fan of Bellanti, and he appreciates the work that he does. And so I think that says a lot, and the fact that he's been renewed for another 4 years with Warner Brothers is a huge deal. And obviously it's a big deal for the Arrowverse because that could tease future shows under Bellanti. And you have to remember, if the CW isn't a good viable option for Bellanti, he could totally take any of his future DC shows that he plans to make over to HBO Max, because it isn't unprecedented that Arrowverse shows can be on HBO Max. Just look at Stargirl and Superman Lois, they air on HBO Max and the CW. He's obviously got a connection there, plus he's been developing a bunch of shows over on HBO Max, so I definitely think it's possible that the Arrowverse could continue on HBO Max if need be. And so, under the terms of the deal, Volante Productions, in which Bellanti has partnered with Sarah Schechter, who obviously has showrun some of the shows including Supergirl in the Arrowverse, will continue to develop new television programming to be produced by divisions of WBTV for all platforms, including HBO Max, external streaming services, cable, and the broadcast network. So there you go, that is the reference to the CW plus HBO Max and everywhere else that they want to make their shows under Volante Productions, and basically they'll have the backing of Warner Brothers, and obviously they'll have the platform to show their shows. And so it continues like this. Like the last time Bellanti re-upped with WBTV, the new pact came together quickly with about 2 years left on his previous deal, as Bellanti's new agents at CAA worked through the holidays and closed the deal with the studio. So the circumstances are very different. And this is where the article goes on to talk about the differences since 5 years ago, basically when Bellanti was ruling WBTV and broke records for the amount of shows that he had on at one time. So it goes on to say this: 5 years ago, Bellanti had been public about his intention to stay at WBTV, run at the time by one of his biggest champions, Peter Roth, who took him in 2 decades ago for a 4-year stint at WBTV, during which Bellanti created his first series, Everwood, and then lured him back to the studio in 2011. Bellanti has been at WBTV ever since, growing his footprint to break several times the record for a TV producer with the most shows at the same time, including having 20 shows on the air and in production during the 2019 to 2022 season, taking over 5 nights of the week over 6 different networks and streamers. Volante Productions currently has more than 15 shows on the air or shooting right now. So there you go, that's just a little bit stats in terms of his track record, and obviously he's very valuable. He's not going to be making that many shows anymore, but currently right now they've still got 15 shows that are either airing or shooting. But I have to say it's likely that that number is going to go down, and I don't think he's ever going to reach the 20 unless he gets a deal in the future with another network that is so open to him creating all of these shows and obviously taking a risk. And so they go on to say this: meanwhile, this past year brought a major upheaval in Volante Productions' TV business, triggered by sweeping changes at WB, DC, and the CW. Following the Discovery merger of Warner Brothers and Discovery, there have been executive shakeups and restructurings across all divisions of Warner Bros., including the TV studio, HBO Max, and DC, whose IP has driven a significant portion of Bellanti's TV portfolio. Additionally, WB and Paramount Global CBS sold the majority stake of their 50% ownership in the CW, where most of Bellanti's productions broadcast series have aired, putting the future of scripted programming on that network in limbo. Deadline also notes that as the CW's fate grew clearer in the past year, they've been up in their HBO Max portfolio, and the company has emerged as a top scripted series supplier for HBO Max. So there you go, it kind of proves like where he is going. He's not necessarily going to just stick to the CW. I think at this point they know they have to have various places where they have their shows. It's just way too risky these days with so much uncertainty surrounding the future of shows to just stick to one network, even though it's worked with him and the Arrowverse and producing shows like Riverdale, which obviously got super popular and are still very popular. But maybe those future shows are just not going to be on the CW because of the direction that the CW is trying to take, which kind of doesn't go with what Bellanti is doing. And so with so much uncertainty, many were wondering whether Bellanti would stay put or opt for a new TV home. Speculation about his future further intensified a couple of weeks ago when he changed his agency. And the last bit of the article that we're going to talk about is just this brief mention of the Arrowverse. Goes like this: Bellanti was the architect of DC's live-action television universe on the CW, incorporating key comic book characters like The Flash, Superman, Green Arrow, Supergirl, and Batwoman, and has spanned a combined 38 season run and counting. So that's a huge deal. Additionally, Bellanti started a second DC universe with Titans, Doom Patrol, and also Stargirl, but Stargirl's kind of more Arrowverse than Titans and Doom Patrol. But that's on HBO Max and is set to launch the new upcoming series Dead Boy Detectives for HBO Max, as well as Gotham Knights on the CW later this year. So that pretty much does it for my breakdown of this Deadline article. We've got a little quote that I wanted to bring up because this is CW and Arrowverse related, and this comes from The Hollywood Reporter. Again, you can check out the article in the description below if you click on the link after the video ends. It says, Bellanti, who is currently in Atlanta directing a new film, is also expected to focus more on creating scripted originals under his new deal as the CW shifts its business model to profitability and what sources say will be fewer than 5 US scripted originals. That's not to say that he won't continue to oversee the next generation of showrunners, the likes of Volante Productions shows, including HBO Max's Dead Boy Detectives, The Girls on the Bus, and more, among others. So there you have it. THR is hearing that with Bellanti's new deal, what's going on with the CW shows is probably going to stay kind of similar to what it is right now, but maybe he's going to add like 1 or 2 shows. Obviously he does have Gotham Knights coming, and it really depends on if any of his other shows are going to be cancelled or if they're going to end anytime soon. Let's really hope that Superman Lois gets to continue into another season. That would be amazing, but as of right now, what they're hearing is he's going to be basically running 5 shows on the CW, which you do have to take with a grain of salt because this is just according to a couple of sources from The Hollywood Reporter. Yes, they're reputable, but in the future, the CW might change their mind. And so there's always the chance for more shows, but there's always the chance for less shows. And so right now, that's kind of where the fate of the Arrowverse lies. It's really in the hands of the CW. But with Greg Bellanti having this deal re-upped for another 4 years, and with Warner Brothers knowing how popular his shows are, I think they would be stupid if they weren't asking him to make more DC shows with their characters and plopping them on HBO Max. So I think there is chance for DCTV and the Arrowverse yet, considering that Greg Bellanti is continuing to work with Warner Brothers in the near future for the next 4 years. But that pretty much does it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Please be sure to leave a like and a comment, really helps out the channel. Also subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. Also check out my shorts tab on my channel. I've been making a bunch of shorts which are like 15-minute kind of short burst videos on Arrowverse and DCEU news. Go check them out if you haven't seen them already. But also I wanted to remind you guys that you can get merchandise. We have released merchandise. It's only going to be available for the next month or so, as our first drop is a limited edition drop. So get it while it's still available by clicking on the link in the description below. It's the dctvshow.tmail.com. And as I've said before, big shout out to everyone that's bought merchandise so far. I really appreciate the support. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching. Click on the top right corner of the screen to watch my latest video, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.
I see red.